Hi Reddit, I, 32M, never thought I'd be posting here, but after everything that's gone down, I feel like this story needs to be shared. It's about realizing that not everyone you let into your life deserves to stay. I'm James, and I've always been someone who takes care of the people I care about. My dad taught me that. He built Carter Development Group from the ground up, turning it into something massive, but he also made sure my brother Andrew, 30M, and I earned our way. Summers on job sites, late nights learning the business, nothing was handed to us on a silver platter. So when I started making good money, I didn't mind spending it on the woman I loved. Enter my ex-fiancée, Amelia, 29F. From the moment I met her at a charity gala 2 years ago, she had this energy about her, confident, stylish, the kind of woman who turns heads without even trying. We clicked right away, and I thought I'd found the one. I'm not going to lie, I liked spoiling Amelia. If she mentioned wanting something, I'd make it happen. A designer bag? Done. Weekend getaways? Sure. Dinner at the nicest places in town? I didn't even blink. It wasn't about showing off or keeping her happy to keep her around. I just believed she deserved the best. To her credit, Amelia played the part of the perfect fiancé. She'd light up whenever I surprised her with something, call me her provider, and tell her friends how lucky she was. And, yeah, I ate it up. But everything changed when my dad passed away a few months ago. Losing him wasn't just a personal blow, it was like losing the foundation of everything I'd built my life on. He wasn't just my father, he was my mentor, the guy who showed me how to navigate the world. I was grieving, trying to figure out what life looked like without him, and at the same time, I had to step up in the business alongside Andrew. It was a lot to handle. Amelia, though? She didn't seem to notice or care how much I was struggling. At first, I thought it was just her way of giving me space. She wasn't exactly the nurturing type. But I figured everyone processes loss differently. Except it wasn't just that she wasn't supportive, it was the shift in her focus. Barely 2 weeks after the funeral, she started asking questions about Carter Development Group. And not the casual, how's work going kind of questions. No, these were pointed, detailed business-focused questions. When do you officially take over? Who's on the board now? Do you have full control? Is Andrew going to try to take a bigger piece of the company? At first, I answered because I didn't think much of it. But the more she asked, the more it felt wrong. She didn't ask how I was holding up or if I needed anything. She didn't even mention my dad unless it was in the context of the business. All she seemed to care about was what came next, and not for us, but for her. The questions weren't just weird, they were relentless. I'd come home exhausted from balancing work and grief, and she'd pounce, how much equity do you have now? Do you have final say on contracts, or does that go through Andrew? What about expansion, are you leading that now? It was like she'd been waiting for this moment, and now that it was here, she wasn't wasting any time. I started noticing other things too, the way she talked about Carter Development like it was her golden ticket, the way she'd casually mention our projects to friends at dinner parties, dropping hints about how we were expanding into new markets. But what really caught my attention was how she started throwing Andrew's name into conversations more and more. Andrew's so business savvy, she'd say with this strange gleam in her eye. You two must make such a great team. At first, I thought she was just being supportive of my relationship with my brother, but something about her tone felt calculated. The change wasn't subtle anymore. Amelia had always known what I did for a living, but she'd never cared about the details before. Now, it was all she wanted to talk about. Whenever we were together, the conversation somehow ended up circling back to work, my role, Andrew's role, the board, the projects. One night, we were sitting in the living room of our downtown condo, and she was scrolling through her phone. Out of nowhere, she said, "You know, I was reading this article about succession planning. It said family businesses can get really messy if roles aren't clearly defined. Do you and Andrew ever fight about who's in charge?" I glanced at her, trying to read her expression, but she didn't even look up from her phone. Not really, I said, keeping my tone casual. We both know our strengths, and we work together. It's not a competition. She nodded like that answer satisfied her, but I could see the gears turning. It wasn't the first time she'd brought up Andrew lately. It seemed like she was more interested in his role in the company than in anything I was doing. The turning point came a few days later. I was in my home office trying to catch up on some paperwork when Amelia came in holding 2 cups of coffee. She handed me one with a smile and perched herself on the edge of the desk. "You've been working so hard lately," she said, her tone sweet but oddly deliberate. "Do you ever feel like you're carrying all the weight on your shoulders?" I shrugged. "It comes with the territory." She leaned in a little closer. "But doesn't it bother you that Andrew gets to share the load without dealing with the same pressure? I mean, you're the face of the company now. He's just assisting, right?" That hit a nerve, not because she was right, but because she was trying to plant seeds of doubt about my brother. Andrew and I had always been equals in the business, and hearing her talk about him that way felt wrong. "Andrew's not just assisting," I said, sharper than I intended. "We're a team. Always have been." She pulled back, looking surprised, but she didn't drop it. "I just think you deserve more credit, that's all. You're the one running the show now." I didn't respond, but the whole conversation left a bad taste in my mouth. It wasn't like Amelia to talk about Andrew that way. If anything, she'd always been polite and respectful toward him. But now it felt like she was trying to drive a wedge between us, or maybe she was testing how much control I really had. After that, I couldn't stop noticing the little things she did. At corporate events, she'd position herself near the power players, laughing at their jokes and slipping into their conversations like she belonged there. At home, she'd casually ask about deals and contracts, and whenever Andrew came up, she'd find a way to steer the conversation back to his role in the company. The worst part was I couldn't talk to anyone about it. Andrew would have called her out immediately, and I wasn't ready to go there yet. My friends didn't know her well enough to see the change, and I wasn't about to burden my mom while she was still grieving. So I kept it to myself, turning the pieces over in my head and trying to make sense of it all. One night, I decided to test her. Nothing big, just a casual comment to see how she'd react. We were having dinner, and I mentioned that a new project was running over budget. "It's going to be a headache," I said, spearing a piece of steak with my fork. "The board's not happy, and Andrew's been up to his ears in it." Her eyes lit up, and she leaned forward. "Oh? What's the project?" "It's just a residential development," I said, keeping my tone light. "But it's tied to a lot of other deals, so the pressure's on." "Sounds stressful," she said, trying to act nonchalant. "Are you the one who has to handle all that?" "Not really," I said. "Andrew's taking the lead on this one. He's better at the big picture stuff." Her face didn't change, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. She didn't press the issue, but the fact that she'd latched onto the project so quickly confirmed what I'd already suspected. She wasn't interested in me, she was interested in what I could give her. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out my next move. I didn't have concrete proof yet, but my gut was screaming that something wasn't right. The hardest part was reconciling the Amelia I'd fallen for with the person she was becoming. When we first met, she'd been so warm, so genuine, or at least I'd thought she was. Now it felt like everything she did was calculated, like she was playing a game I didn't even know I'd entered. But I wasn't about to let her win. If Amelia thought she could manipulate me into giving her what she wanted, she was in for a rude awakening. I'd spent my whole life watching my dad navigate tough situations, and if there was one thing he taught me, it was how to spot a snake in the grass. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to sit back and let her control the narrative. If she was playing a game, I was going to play it better. Update 1: By the time I decided to test Amelia, I wasn't questioning if her intentions were bad, I was questioning how far she'd go. I spent a few days planning with Andrew, crafting a scenario that would expose her true colors. "We need to make it believable," Andrew said during one of our late-night strategy sessions at his apartment. "Something that would hit her where it matters most, her vision of her future with the company." We decided to create a situation where my position in Carter Development Group would appear less secure than she thought. Would she stick around, or would she start looking for the next opportunity? The plan started with small hints. In meetings where Amelia was present, Andrew would take more prominent roles. We arranged for board members to defer to him more often, and I deliberately stepped back from some high-profile decisions. Then came the bigger moves. I had our family lawyer, who was in on the plan, schedule several conspicuous meetings with Andrew. When Amelia asked about them, I'd be vague, mentioning something about succession planning and legal requirements. The change in her behavior was immediate and fascinating to watch. She started showing up at my office with lunch more often, but her eyes would constantly drift to Andrew's office across the hall. She'd ask casual questions about his schedule, his meetings, his plans for the weekend. One particularly telling incident occurred during a company cocktail party. I watched as Amelia navigated the room with surgical precision, spending exactly enough time with each board member to seem interested but not desperate. But when Andrew entered, her entire demeanor changed. She positioned herself near his usual group, laughing a bit too loudly at their jokes, touching her hair more frequently, classic signs of flirting that I'd once found charming when they were directed at me. "Your brother has such a commanding presence," she said later that night, testing the waters. "The board really respects him." I played my part perfectly, sighing and looking troubled. "Yeah, they do. Things are complicated right now." That was her cue. Complicated how? "Is everything okay?" I waited a few days before dropping the bomb. During dinner at our favorite restaurant, I told her I needed to share something important. The story we crafted was perfect, a legal technicality that would give Andrew primary control of the company. "Remember how I told you my dad adopted me?" I said, watching her reaction carefully. "Well, it turns out that affects my inheritance rights. Andrew's getting the majority share. He'll be CEO, and I'll be, well, more of a consultant." The change in her expression was subtle but unmistakable. Her eyes widened slightly, her smile froze, and for just a moment, I saw panic flash across her face. "But that's not fair," she protested, though I noticed her objection seemed more about the situation than about me. "How can they do that?" "It's all legal," I said, shrugging. Dad's will was very specific about blood relatives. Over the next few days, Andrew and I documented everything. Her texts to me became less frequent, while her interactions with Andrew increased dramatically. She started finding reasons to visit his office, always dressed impeccably, always with some small gift or question that couldn't wait. The most revealing moment came during a board meeting. Amelia had never shown interest in attending these before, but suddenly she insisted on being there to support me. Throughout the meeting, I watched as her eyes repeatedly drifted to Andrew, especially when he was presenting. Then she started the subtle campaign to get closer to him. "I was thinking," she said one evening, "maybe we should invite Andrew over for dinner more often. He seems so stressed with all these new responsibilities." I agreed, playing the role of the supportive brother, while Andrew played his part perfectly, being polite but not too encouraging, interested but not too available. It was like watching a chess match where we knew all the moves in advance. The real confirmation came through her phone. She'd gotten careless, leaving it unlocked while charging. The messages to Andrew were exactly what we expected. "You're handling everything so well. It must be a lot of pressure. Your presentation today was impressive. You have such a natural leadership style. If you ever need someone to talk to about all this, I'm here." Each message was carefully crafted to seem innocent while laying the groundwork for something more. Andrew forwarded them all to me, maintaining our evidence trail. But the most damning evidence came from her laptop. She'd left it open one day, and I saw her recent searches. Inheritance rights, adopted children. Challenging adoption inheritance. Dating company CEO, legal issues. It was all falling into place. Amelia wasn't just testing the waters, she was actively planning her transition from my fiancé to potentially Andrew's partner, both personally and professionally. "She's getting bolder," Andrew told me over the phone. Today she suggested we meet for coffee to discuss some ideas about the company. She emphasized that it should be just us, to us speak freely. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. The woman who'd spent 2 years convincing me she was the perfect partner was now methodically plotting her exit strategy, completely unaware that every move she made was being documented. The stage is set for the final act. Next week, we're hosting a family dinner, board members, key employees, and close family friends will all be there. Amelia thinks it's to officially announce the changes in company leadership. She has no idea it's actually going to be her unveiling, but not in the way she expects. All the evidence is ready. The text messages, the recorded conversations, the surveillance footage from our office showing her repeated coincidental meetings with Andrew, everything has been compiled and prepared. I'm not doing this out of pure revenge. This is about protecting our family's legacy and sending a message about loyalty and trust. Sometimes the best way to deal with a snake is to let it think it's winning, right until the moment you reveal the trap. The dinner is in 3 days. Amelia's already planning her outfit, probably thinking about how to position herself as the supportive fiancée during this difficult transition. She has no idea she's about to become the cautionary tale of Carter Development Group. I'll update after the dinner. Something tells me it's going to be a night to remember. Update 2, the family dinner went exactly as planned, maybe even better. I want to share every detail because it was truly a night to remember. The evening started at 7 p.m. at our family's favorite steakhouse in their private dining room. Amelia arrived looking stunning in a new designer dress I'd bought her last month. She was working the room like a seasoned politician, laughing and charming everyone. If only they knew what was coming. Andrew started the evening with a toast about our father's legacy and the company's future. I watched Amelia's face as she practically glowed, probably thinking she was about to witness the announcement that would secure her golden future. Then Andrew's tone shifted. "There's something else I want to address tonight," he said, glancing around the room. "It's about loyalty, trust, and how some people aren't who they appear to be." Amelia's smile froze slightly. She reached for my hand under the table, probably trying to show unity. I let her take it, knowing it would be the last time. I stood up next, phone in hand. "Amelia," I said, keeping my voice steady, "I think it's time we had a real conversation about your intentions." "What do you mean?" she asked, but I could see the panic starting to creep into her eyes. That's when I played the recording from her recent visit to Andrew's office. Her voice filled the room as she praised his leadership, criticized me, and suggested that the two of them would make a great team. Her parents, sitting across the table, looked horrified. That's not what it sounds like," she stammered, looking around frantically. "You're taking everything out of context." "Really?" I pulled up her text messages on the projector screen. "Is your brother's way more suited to running the company also out of context? Or how about, we should meet privately to discuss our future?" Her father's face had turned deep red. "Amelia," he said, his voice dangerously low, "what is this?" "Daddy, no, they're twisting everything," she pleaded, tears starting to form. "James is just jealous because Andrew's taking over the company." That's when Andrew dropped the final bomb. "Actually, I'm not taking over anything. James and I are equal partners, just as we've always been. The adoption story was a test, one you failed spectacularly." The room went dead silent. Amelia's mother covered her face with her hands, while her father stood up abruptly, his napkin falling to the floor. "We're leaving," he announced. "Amelia, get your things. Now." "But Dad, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" he snapped. "How you tried to manipulate and betray the man you were going to marry. How you've humiliated our family in front of everyone." As they left, Amelia tried one last time to reach me. "James, please," she sobbed. "I love you. We can fix this." I just shook my head. "No, Amelia, we can't. You've shown me exactly who you are. There's no fixing that." After they left, several board members actually congratulated us on how we handled the situation. One of them, who'd known my father for 30 years, patted my shoulder and said, "Your dad would be proud. He always said the true measure of a leader is how they handle betrayal." The aftermath was swift. Within hours, Amelia's carefully curated social media presence was flooded with people who'd been at the dinner sharing what had happened. By midnight, she'd deleted all her accounts. Her parents called the next day, not to apologize for her, but to assure us they wouldn't contest the broken engagement or try to fight for any gifts I'd given her. We raised her better than this, her mother said, clearly fighting back tears. Andrew and I spent the rest of the evening at our father's favorite bar, raising a toast to him and the values he'd instilled in us. You know, Andrew said, Dad always told us the most valuable asset in business isn't money, it's loyalty. The company's lawyer is drawing up paperwork to ensure Amelia can never claim any connection to Carter Development Group or its assets. Not that she'd try, her social standing in our circles is completely destroyed. Some might think the public exposure was too harsh, but in our world, reputation and trust are everything. Amelia didn't just try to scam me, she tried to undermine our entire family legacy. I'll post another update if anything significant happens, but for now, I'm just relieved it's over. Time to focus on running the company with the one person I know I can always trust, my brother. Update 3, it's been a month since the dinner party incident, and I need to share what happened next because things took an even more dramatic turn. Just when I thought it was all over, Amelia pulled her final desperate move. I was sitting in my office going through project proposals when an email from her popped up in my inbox. The subject line read, "You need to know this." Against my better judgment, I opened it. Inside was a single line, "I'm pregnant, James. It's your baby." I stared at the screen, not feeling shock or panic, just disbelief. This was Amelia, the same woman who had lied, manipulated, and betrayed me at every turn. This wasn't about a baby, this was her last attempt to regain control. I forwarded the email to Andrew with a short message, "Look at this nonsense." He called me immediately. "Did you respond?" "Nope, and I'm not going to," I replied. "She's full of it." "Good," he said. "She's probably hoping you'll freak out and go running back to her. Don't give her the satisfaction." But Amelia wasn't giving up that easily. Over the next few days, she launched a full-scale attack on multiple fronts. She called my mother, claiming she was pregnant and terrified about what to do. She even reached out to Andrew, saying she needed to talk to him about the future of our family. Andrew shut her down immediately. "If it's James's baby, get a paternity test. Otherwise, stop wasting my time." When that didn't work, she turned to her own parents. I later learned through mutual friends that this backfired spectacularly. Her parents, still reeling from the dinner party scandal, had been receiving calls from their social circle asking uncomfortable questions. For a family as image-conscious as hers, it was the ultimate humiliation. After one particularly heated argument where her father called her a disgrace to the family name, they kicked her out. That's when things got really messy. She showed up at my apartment building at 2 a.m., pounding on the door and causing a scene. "James, please," she sobbed loud enough for the whole floor to hear. "I have nowhere else to go. We need to talk about the baby." I didn't answer, but my neighbor Mrs. Thompson, a retired judge who'd seen enough drama in her career to spot a fraud, came out and told her she'd call the police if she didn't leave immediately. Amelia screamed at her, calling her every name in the book, but finally stormed off. The next day, I received a series of increasingly unhinged texts. "You can't ignore me forever. This is your child too. Your mother would be ashamed of how you're treating me. I'll go to the press about how the Carters treat women." I didn't respond to any of them, but I did have our company's legal team document everything. They advised me to wait it out. People showing their true colors often give you the best ammunition against them. They were right. Within weeks, Amelia's desperate attempts to maintain her lifestyle had become the talk of our social circle. She'd been staying on various friends' couches, but her welcome wore out quickly when they realized she was just using them to try to reconnect with me or Andrew. She tried to leverage her connections to the Carter family to get a job at a rival development firm, but word had spread about her behavior. No reputable company would touch her. Her carefully crafted image as a sophisticated businesswoman had crumbled, revealing the opportunist beneath. The final email I got from her came exactly 1 month after the dinner party. It was a rambling, contradictory mess that perfectly captured her unraveling. "James, I know I messed up, but you have to understand, I was scared. Everything was changing so fast after your dad died. I just wanted to secure our future. And yes, maybe I got too focused on the business, but that's because I care. I wanted us to be successful together. Andrew was just being nice to me, and I was trying to be supportive of both of you. You twisted everything. You humiliated me in front of everyone. My life is ruined because of you. And no, I'm not pregnant. I never was. I just wanted you to talk to me. But you're too much of a coward to even face me. You and your precious brother think you're so perfect, but you're not. You're just privileged boys who got everything handed to them. I hope your company fails. I hope you lose everything like I did. Then maybe you'll understand how it feels to have nothing. To be nothing. P.S. That Cartier bracelet you gave me? I sold it. Hope that hurts. I actually laughed reading it. The bracelet she mentioned? It was a replica I'd bought when I first started suspecting her true nature. The real one was safely stored in my office safe. Even her attempt at a parting shot revealed her materialism. Last week, I heard through mutual friends that she's moved to Houston to start fresh. Apparently, she's telling people there that she's an independent business consultant who left New York because it was too toxic. The reality? None of her former contacts would recommend her for any positions in our industry. As for me? Life has never been better. Carter Development Group is thriving under Andrew's and my leadership. We just closed our biggest deal yet, a sustainable urban development project that would have made our dad proud. Our team is stronger than ever, and we've implemented new policies to protect the company from future opportunists. The experience taught me valuable lessons about trust, family, and the importance of seeing people for who they really are. My dad used to say that character reveals itself under pressure. Amelia just proved him right. I'm dating again, casually. This time, I'm looking for someone who values me for who I am, not what I can provide. Someone who understands that true partnership isn't about what you can get, but what you can build together. Andrew and I are closer than ever. Last night, over drinks at our dad's favorite bar, he raised his glass and said, "To Dad, he taught us that the best defense against gold diggers is a brother who has your back." I couldn't have said it better myself.